Hello. After reading this article and looking at the four different strategies that the author provided, I came up with four different ways that they could be used. And in my mind, I kept going across the curriculum. My mind immediately kept going to language arts. So I brought it back to science and I based the four strategies around the topic of rocks. And I think that it's really interesting how different teachers could use these different strategies. So the first one of mystery canisters, I originally thought, looking at the article about solids, liquids, and gas, as the students went through that, another way that they could show what they know is by using descriptive words. So when they shook the canister, maybe using a descriptive word that would describe what they felt or what they thought was inside the canister. But as I maybe researched a little bit more about what other people do with mystery canisters, I found, and I'm so glad that I did, that a teacher used this to promote the scientific method and really help their students to understand and go through that. So as they're feeling for what's in the mystery canisters and seeing how they talked about a cotton ball, or there were different things inside the canister, they would first begin making a question, what they think maybe is in the canister, and then forming their hypothesis and moving forward and then experimenting and finally seeing what's inside the canister, just showing them how to do the scientific process with something simple as the mystery canisters. But for my personal strategy that I suggest would be to put different types of rocks into bags, and as the students stick their hand in the bag, they feel the surface of the rock, and if it's a little rocky, if it's smooth, what kind of texture it is. So they would be using their descriptive words with this as well, but they would be able to kind of classify the different rocks. So as they feel into the mystery bag or canister, feel that different rock with their hands, the teacher would then be able to introduce the different types of rocks, the characteristics, the classification, and formation. So I think that moves on to window panes, and everything, all the suggestions that I have kind of go with a common theme. So with the window panes, I first would like to say I think that with the scientific method as well, maybe students on one side of the window pane could put the step in the method and then draw a little icon to help them remember. And as the article also talked about, hanging those outside or around the room for other students, and maybe that could help them. So thinking about this in terms of rocks, maybe the student could write sedimentary or igneous, metamorphic, any type of rock, and then maybe try to draw their best drawing of the type of rock, or write some characteristics about that rock, and then they would be able to look and see. And it could also be an ongoing list as well, and they could add to it. They could see what other people put to help them better understand the different classifications of rocks. And then the hardness scale, I think this is really cool too, because as the students here, we're kind of solidifying their knowledge of the feeling or the classification of the specific object. The students could do that with the different types of rocks as well. Is it rocky? Is it smooth? And they would be able to see and compare and contrast how each rock is different and how it differs from one another. What similarities do they have? And just going through the different characteristics and classifications through using their touch. And also seeing it as well, whereas in the mystery canisters they weren't able to see. So then the last strategy, the bag and tag word wall, I really love this. I've never heard or really seen anything like this be done before. So I thought that it would be super interesting and a really cool looking bulletin board for the students to see and understand, to do rocks and put like different types of rocks or different characteristics of rocks into the bag, and then tagging it as what the rock name is. So like putting different sedimentary rocks all in one bag to see how they can differ, but still their characteristics that make up the rock is still considered like a sedimentary rock. And so the students would be able to visually see and be able even to take the rocks out of the bags and touch and see that's the word, that's the type of rock, and be able to get accustomed to what kinds of rocks there are and the different characteristics that go along with that. So thinking about this also with language arts or different kinds of things to use this with for the word wall. Descriptive words. I'm thinking of descriptive because we're using our senses to see and to touch, and I think that maybe putting in different textures, like if you would put in a fuzzy piece of cloth into a bag and then putting the descriptive word of like fuzzy, or putting a piece of sandpaper and putting it as like rough, or like scratchy, or just something to help students when they're writing to look at the wall and be able to take it out and feel and see and be able to say like, that's what I was thinking of, and this is the word that goes along with, like, what would deepen and help make their descriptive essay more rich. So thank you for watching. I enjoyed this activity and looking at the different strategies.